Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for attending our panel discussion. This morning, will there ever be a truly ultra-efficient aircraft? I'm Thierry Dubois, I'm the moderator. I'm a journalist with Aviation Week, and more precisely, I'm the European technology editor with Aviation Week. With me today, I have just to my left, Sébastien Dubois. Same name, different family, as far as I know. We are not relatives. Sébastien, you are the head of unit program development and communications with Clean Aviation. Next to Sébastien is Daniel Cuchet. You work with ATR, the regional turboprop manufacturer, and you are the technical director. Next to you, Michael Winter. You work with RTX, in case you don't know RTX, the very large group, including Pratt & Whitney, Collins, and more. You'll tell us about it.
Raytheon.
And Raytheon, thank you. The R, of course. And you are the chief scientist. And last but not least, we have Stéphane Viala. You work with, actually, you'll tell us what you do. You work with Ascendance. And in short, you are developing hybrid electric four-seater and powertrains, and hybrid electric powertrains. You'll give us more details. So Stéphane Viala, you are with Ascendance, and you are the Director of Engineering and Programs. Thank you all for attending. I appreciate. Before we set the scene on the topic of what ultra-efficient means, I would like all of you, please, to introduce yourself and introduce what you do, especially introduce your company or organization. So, for instance, would you like to go first? What's Clean Aviation? And you have about 30-35 seconds.
Okay,
speaking.
So it's a pitch for investors. Clean Aviation is a public-private partnership. This is a body which is co-financed by the industry and by the European Commission. This is the tool which is at European level in order to implement the public policy in order to transition towards carbon neutrality for aviation. In short, we are managing 1.7 billion euros of funding, complemented by 2.4 billion euros from the industry in order to develop the next generation of aircraft and all the disruptive technologies towards carbon neutrality.
Thank you, Sébastien. Daniel.
So ATR is the regional aircraft manufacturer, worldwide leader on this, on the turboprop especially market. So we are a company which is a subsidiary of Airbus and Leonardo at 50%. Founded 40 years ago, we have delivered almost 1,700 aircraft. And we are the worldwide leader in this market, which is a regional. So I will tell you more just after.
Thank you. Michael.
So I'm with RTX, which is Collins Aerospace, Pratt & Whitney, and Raytheon. Collins Aerospace, we provide subsystems throughout the aircraft, and we manage about 2/3 of the world's air traffic. Pratt & Whitney, we provide propulsion systems from the very smallest turboprops through business jets, helicopters, all the way up through single-aisle aircraft, as well as military platforms, both large and small. And Raytheon, I'm sure we're all very familiar with Raytheon, radars, radios, and missile systems that are ubiquitous for defending our freedom. At RTX, we have last year 80 billion in sales, 185,000 employees, 57,000 engineers, almost 1 in 3, and 60,000 patents. So really proud of our position. As the chief scientist, I lead and ensure the technical integrity of our technology portfolio, to accelerate that portfolio, and to represent it externally.
Thank you, Michael. That were very impressive numbers. I think you are also impressive numbers. You are representing the youngest organization here on the stage. And could please let us know what's the latest progress you've done technically? I think that's most interesting. So what are you doing, and what's the latest technically, progress?
So good morning, everyone. So Ascendance is a company that has been created in 2018 by 4 guys that were the first one developing a full electrical aircraft that crossed the channel in Airbus. It was the IFAN. And then they come up to the conclusion that full electrical is limited in terms of range, in terms of capability. and that the hybrid solution is one of the solutions that could work. And then afterwards, the company has grown progressively. I joined the company 2.5 years ago. Now we're around 100 people. So we developed the technology, which is a unique, I would say, hybrid pack, where we develop the battery, the distribution, and the management of the energy, which is key for this kind of technology, and we'll come back on this afterwards. And then we experience this technology on an aircraft because it is opening up a new configuration on a VTOL, vertical takeoff and landing. So it's not an urban mobility, it's commuter, because as we are hybrid, we can go up to 400 kilometers for 4 to 6 packs, which is, I would say, the key point, selling point on our side. And you see that now a lot of full electrical are following up this trend, switching from full electrical to hybrid, because you realize that full electrical is too limited in terms of range and payload. And we'll come back on hybrid, I believe, later on.
Absolutely. Thank you all. Let's set the scene. So as you can see in the title of this panel discussion, there are more than one keyword, but maybe the keyword is ultra-efficient. So we are talking about aircraft that are still relying on fuel, but burning much less fuel, hopefully. And they may contribute to aviation's goal of net zero emissions in 2050. That is getting net CO2 emissions down to zero by that time frame. Among the other contributors, which we want to mention, are sustainable aviation fuels, contributors to this goal. So SAF, sustainable aviation fuels, hydrogen, all-electric aircraft, and air traffic management. For instance, the aviation industry usually refers to sustainable aviation fuels as contributing an expected 43% of the goal by 2050. So that was just to give the context, but now we are focusing on ultra-efficient aircraft. So how could ultra-efficient aircraft, how the improvement in efficiency could contribute to the net zero goal? Who would like to go first? Sébastien, maybe?
I think what is important to remind is the departing point, because we are used to saying SAF, sustainable aviation fuel, is a solution for the future. But in terms of, we need a mix of solutions, because when you look at the big picture, Horizon 2050, and you look at the commitments of the overall industry, and also the commitment of Europe to become the first carbon neutral continent by 2050, we have we have several solutions. One is to provide solutions on the technical side in order to improve the efficiency of the aircraft, to support, in fact, the renewal of the fleet, in order to accelerate the replacement of existing aircraft and to accompany the growth with more efficient aircraft. And more or less, depending on the scenario, this will contribute in the ballpark of 25 to 35% of the emission reduction part. The second one is optimizing the traffic and optimizing the operations. We are used to saying that we need to reduce the CO2 emissions, but we need to reduce the greenhouse gases emissions, because here we are talking about the global warming effects. And when talking about global warming effects, you have also non-CO2 aspects. And so it relates as well to the contrails and all other species, such as water, which are emitted in the atmosphere, the NOx, and so on and so forth. So improving operations is a must. And this is the second lever. We estimate about 6 to 12% the improvement expected from this side. The third one is the sustainable aviation fuel. With one caveat, sustainable aviation fuel at that time is more or less 10 times the price of the kerosene. It will decrease. But it means, first of all, if we want to remain competitive for the overall industry, we need efficient aircraft which consume less SAF and which provide as well value to the airlines in order, first of all, to fight against the increase of the increase of price of the SAF, and secondly, as well, to fight against potentially the non-availability of all the SAF we need. And then you have all the carbon-based measures which are associated to that. We, Clean Aviation, what we are doing, we are supporting this journey for what concerns the maturation and development of the technologies, with three objectives. The first one is to make sure that we have a portfolio of solutions that will provide a reduction of no less than 30% of greenhouse gases emission reduction by the horizon 2035. The second is to make sure that we have all the necessary portfolio of technologies to support the launch of new products for any members participating in Clean Aviation to be in capacity to inject into their new products that solutions. And the third one is to work as well on the competitiveness aspects and to make sure that all that new aircraft and with technologies entering into the market will have the potential to replace significantly the existing aircraft and to accompany the ramp up and the necessary production rate in order to deliver that new elements. And then we work on portfolio of technologies addressing primarily the short medium range aircraft and secondly the regional segment. And on that two segments, we are investigating a portfolio of technologies across the propulsion, the wing, the fuselage, the weight reduction, combining a mix of energy, which is either sustainable aviation fuel, electricity with hybrid electric, or hydrogen. So in a nutshell, our goal is to further mature technologies supporting 4 aircraft concepts, one in the field of short medium range powered by SAF, the second is hybrid electric powered for the regional market, and third one is the use of hydrogen for either short medium range aircraft or a regional segment, 100 pax, 1,000 nautical miles.
Thank you, Sébastien. So on the importance of ultra efficiency, who would like to respond?
I think ATR being born with ultra efficiency, I can say a word on that, Thierry. I think for the ones who know the turboprop technology, this was built onto the market and was done to be ultra efficient for 2 reasons. To be economics, so our customers, they have regional lines, could be island to island, could be regional routes. So we need to have ultra efficiency by default. So that means this is our DNA. And our turboprop technology is definitely today already ultra efficient.
Could you give us a number?
Yeah. For example,
compared to a turbofan, for instance.
Yeah, if we take regional jets, which were, let's say, built or designed in the 80s, and if we now replace them by turboprop technology, be it ATR or not, it will be the same principle, but we are the only one on the market to be able to deliver new aircraft as of today. So if we replace those, let's call it old regional jets, we can divide more or less by 2 the CO2 emissions and the fuel consumptions, and so related economics. So it's
and that's measured per hour of flight, right?
Per hour
of flight.
So it's a drastic already efficiency as of today. What we want to do is to continue this journey and to work on some new technologies. And I don't want to repeat what Sébastien said. It's clearly the way we should go. It is at propulsion level. It is at aerodynamics level. At propulsion level, we see 2 clearly topics to be worked. Clearly, the propulsion itself, so the thermal engine, which is already very efficient. We have delivered with our colleagues from Pratt what we call the 127XT engine. But we want to go further, and we want to improve on the pure thermal machine, and we want to demonstrate this hybrid technology because we think that there is a future on this. As we said, the efficiency will be better with this. The challenge of the battery is clearly here, but we see as a mean to reduce also the size of the engines and to be even more efficient. So propulsion with 2 levels, clearly the thermal engine itself, the hybridization with electrical motors and batteries, and aerodynamics and all what is around. Not talking about operations, which is obviously also work to be done at ATM level.
Thanks. Michael, do you want to react?
So we've come a really long way. Fuel efficiency has always been important. 30 to 40% of the cost of running an airline is fuel. 30 to 40% of the cost of running a modern Air Force is also fuel. And if you look since the dawn of the jet age, airplanes and engines have been getting better by 1 to 1.5% per year. Look at a Boeing 707 and an A321 XLR, almost the same range and payload, and yet the newer aircraft and engine is 70% lower fuel burn, 70% fewer grams of CO2 per revenue kilometer hour. Revenue per seat mile. So it's really, we've come a long way. Now, we see that there's a lot of runway where we can continue this. Specifically, as you said, the propulsion efficiency, the thermal efficiency, the operations of the routing. There's a several percent that are available through routing. But there's another knob to turn, and hopefully we'll get to it, and that is with hybrid electric. And hybrid electric is not about arbitrage, where you're, say, shifting the fuel burn to electrons, but it's actually about how do I reimagine the engine and aircraft as a cyber-physical machine that I can control in a more optimal way. And I think we'll get to that in some of the further questions. I want to leave time for others.
Yeah.
Thanks. So, ultra efficiency in your design.
Yeah. I can elaborate on the hybrid because I think I just concur to all what has been said and on how it is working, hybridization. Basically, when you are taking off for an aircraft, you optimize and you have to design the engine for the takeoff and the climb. And then afterwards, you have to carry this engine when you are in cruise, while it is designed basically for, I would say, a few minutes of operation. So the idea of hybridization is to downsize the engine itself and complement with electrical energy. And in that case, you can have the flexibility and you can also reduce the consumption because you reduce the size of the engine. And then it is opening up for the SAF. You have to take care of the regulation as well, because there is one point in the regulation which is a little bit counteracting this, which is the LOPC, loss of power control, that is enforcing you to keep 85% of the performance. And this is where the technology and the management of the energy on board is very important, because you can have four or five batteries, you can pull them, you can use them, and then you can use those batteries and the electrical energy to have the flexibility and counteract this regulation of the LOPC. And last but not least, it is when you master the energy management, you can also optimize your propulsion system to your aerodynamic aircraft. Because today, engine manufacturers are developing a thermal engine for several aircraft manufacturers. So, at a certain point in time, the engine is not optimized for each aircraft. Having the flexibility of the electrical additional energy, you can match the optimum of your aerodynamic of the aircraft with the bucket of your engine and the best, I would say, performance of your engine. And last but not least, it is opening up as well some other type of architecture, because you can have parallel, that is to say that you have the electrical on the same shaft of the engine, or you can generate electricity and use electrical motor to have propeller where you want. And then it's opening up some new, I would say, configuration, like the VTOL. We're working on it. We did also for the UAV, for UAV with Delair, we did an hybridization, which is allowing to increase the range, but also to have the flexibility to be, I would say, silent in certain period of the flight. And you can also have distributed propulsion. Distributed propulsion, then you optimize as well the configuration of the aircraft, because you have this electricity on board in order to optimize the configuration. So you see that the hybrid is really opening a full range of options in order to better optimize the aircraft in all the phases of flight.
Can you please remind us what distributed propulsion is and how it improves the overall design?
Yeah, distributed propulsion, you put not only two motors, two engines, two propellers, you can have several propellers. And in that case, you optimize and you reduce the drag by blowing the wing. Basically, this is a principle which is behind. It has been demonstrated. There was a flight with that has been done with EcoPulse. It's something which is known from an aerodynamic standpoint, and it's working well.
Thank you. I'd like to delve into the engines and the propulsion system. Daniel, could you please tell us why a propeller is better to start with?
Yeah,
you like propellers.
I like propellers. I'm not the only one, but I clearly like propellers. Let me give you an example of the efficiency of a turboprop, because it's not only a turboprop. You take the volume of the two tables linked with that, so a very small volume, and this is the size of the engine that we have today on ATR, so one per side. And you put a propeller which is driven by this small engine compared to the size, and this size of engine is providing around 3,000 horsepower. 3,000 horsepower. So you give the image compared to a car engine, which is this size. You imagine 3,000 horsepower, and you drive a propeller which is 4 meters diameter. So you simply say that the efficiency is huge, and this is by principle the turboprop. So I don't give the details. You can go on the internet to understand the details, but you see that with a small engine, a very smart gearbox and adaptation, and as we said, with some electrical motors which are here to optimize depending on the phase you want to optimize. It could be top of climb, it could be takeoff, it could be other size. You again optimize another side, which is you use your propeller and you use your engine where they are absolutely designed for and optimized for. So the efficiency is really that. The turboprop, the market is clearly at lower speed than the jet because they are not optimized for high altitude and high speed. So the only drawback is that if you want to keep this duration, you need to have smaller routes. So more or less, we are best optimized between 300 to 500 nautical miles. So this is the market of the ATR turboprop.
Thanks. And Sébastien, could we use the benefits and the strong points of propellers on larger aircraft, such as I'm thinking of the open fan? So could you explain what the open fan is and what are the changes we have to see an open fan on a larger aircraft?
Yes, the open fan, in fact, is a conventional ducted engine without the nacelle. If I make it short, this is one thing. And secondly, with a propeller, with a blade, which is far bigger. And the reason why, in fact, we unconstrain the engine design by removing the nacelle is because it would be too heavy to maintain such a nacelle. And here, this is when we are talking about future aircraft generation, the short-medium range. Some of the parties consider that the sole way to meet the minus 20% fuel burn reduction on the next propulsion generation is really to design engines with far bigger blade diameters in order to provide efficiency. This is more or less what is an open fan. An open fan could be compared to a turboprop, but I would not go down this route because this is a turbofan, but with a bigger propeller. Are there any similarities? There are a lot of similarities. Is it in the field of the propeller? I'm not so sure because the speed of the aircraft is not the same, the altitude is not the same, and the constraints either are not the same, and all the equipments as well associated to the way you operate are not identical. Nevertheless, when talking about hybrid electric, we are talking about, in fact, new electric network. New electric network, we are talking about battery integration. And so what is important in that field is that we can benefit a lot from the full ecosystem, from the small aircraft. So we can talk about, in fact, what Ascendance could provide in that field, and also to assess the upscaling of such technologies. The other thing, when talking about hybrid electric propulsion concept, we are investigating now how to really develop and design such a prototype with a network which could be 800 volt, with the aim to carry a high amount of energy. When this being tested, in fact, on the hybrid electric, this could benefit as well the short-medium range. So there is a lot of portfolio of technologies which are across and which can bring benefits to either SMR aircraft, to either an hybrid electric regional aircraft, also to long range, but also on the small scale. Thanks.
Stéphane, could you describe the propulsion system and more specifically the propellers, if you call them so? Are they ducted, unducted?
Yeah. Alors, I concur for sure of what has been said because propeller is the best way to generate thrust. It's physics, it's basic physics. Afterwards, if you talk about what could bring the hybridization on the engine side, as I said, you change the way you optimize your engine, but as well, it is opening up some new technology in terms of engine. So you can go for a piston engine or whatever that are difficult to scale up, but because you have the electricity on board, you can optimize your engine for the propeller. On our aircraft, we have propeller for sure for the longitudinal flight. There is nothing better, and we have a particularity on the aircraft, which is the fan-in wing for the vertical. So our aircraft is a lift and cruise. For the vertical, we have it's like fenestrons that you have on an helicopter. So it's a small duct, and you have to optimize also the blade for this. And the good point having this kind of technology on board is that you can contain also the blade release for such an aircraft with a vertical takeoff. Voilà, so 2 points. The integration of the propeller is something which is important, and the optimization of the engine itself, the thermal engine, and as well having the electrical motor, you can also optimize the integration of the propeller on the aircraft. Because in the past, the propeller were, I would say, designed in isolation, and then afterward you put it on the aircraft. When you put it on the aircraft, you have an effect which is the airframe is influencing the inflow of the propeller, and then you reduce your efficiency. By doing the distribution and by doing all what is done on the improving, I would say, the next generation of propeller, you can do a better job now with all the CFD, all the knowledge we have, to also optimize and go a step forward on the efficiency of the propeller.
Thanks. Michael, what do you think? Is the propeller or an open fan a good idea, or would you rather focus on something else?
So we love propellers on the right airplanes. Propellers give you, and at Pratt & Whitney Canada, we make a number of propeller engines to power most of the turboprops in the Western world. Similarly, we make propellers at Collins Aerospace. But it's really about the optimization, as was said, that the overall efficiency of the engine is the propulsive efficiency multiplied by the thermal efficiency. And the propulsive efficiency, as was said, the propellers can be more efficient because you slow it down, and as you slow it down, they generate less pressure, and the thrust is just the pressure multiplied by the area. So it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and the challenge is on some airplanes that just doesn't integrate well with the overall aircraft. So as you look at, say, a single aisle, it helps to go to higher propulsive efficiency, and that's exactly why Pratt & Whitney introduced the geared turbofan for the single aisle. And what that let us do was slow down the fan just enough, but it still didn't compromise the installation on the airplane. Just because the engine is so much more efficient doesn't mean that the airplane and engine will be, if I still have to make changes to the airplane, say to add mass to protect the fuselage, if I'm going to a thin wing with a laminar flow, if I put an egg beater in front of that, it's not going to preserve that nice smooth flow over the wing. And so it's really about how do I optimize the airplane. And it turns out that the scale, as I go to a single aisle, a geared turbofan is actually a much better solution.
So would you focus on thermal efficiency, for instance, for the next generation? What would be your focus?
So, excellent question. So when we introduced the geared turbofan, it was a combination of thermal and propulsive efficiency. It was mostly the propulsive efficiency. The next generation will allow us to go deeper into that design space, going a little bit higher with the gear ratio, from 3 to just a little bit higher than that, and then also go much deeper into thermal efficiency. And that means going to higher temperatures and pressures. If you go back 87 years to the dawn of the jet age, Von Ahn and Whittle, and you look at the thermal efficiency, we've improved 400% since then. And if you plot that against the theoretical line, we've only come halfway to the theoretical limit. That means there's a tremendous amount of runway. The challenge is that as I go to the higher thermal efficiency, the pressures go up, and so the temperatures go up. And when the temperatures go up, we're already hotter than the melting point of all the metal around it. Don't think about that when you fly home. And so we have to reach for new systems like ceramic matrix composites is one solution. Another is to go with very, very sophisticated cooling patterns inside the components themselves. And borrowing some new medical technology, we've capitalized and built an entire factory of order $650 million investment in order to make these features inside turbine blades to address this next generation.
Thank you, that was enlightening. Thank you, Michael. I would like to talk a bit about hybrid electric and more precisely battery performance. So I would like to know why hybrid electric design needs battery. And we've been disappointed by battery performance over the last decade, right? They are not up to the hype that was suggested 10 years ago or so in terms of energy density. So in other words, they are heavy compared to their energy content, much heavier than we hoped 10 or 15 years ago. Stefan, would you like to go first? Battery performance, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I can start with this. Yes, in fact, battery performance, it was a little bit disappointed when I was in Airbus in 2013. I did the roadmap for the battery evolution. We are very clever. We were plotting Moore law, whatever, and we were all wrong, completely wrong. This being said, there is progresses that are ongoing. And we have to keep in mind that we are talking about batteries which are on board an aircraft. So you cannot stop when there is a fire or whatever. So the first thing is the safety and the regulation, the certification, which is impacting a lot the design of such a battery. The second point is that you need to ensure a stability, a traceability in all what are produced in terms of cells for manufacturing battery pack. Which is, we have to know that aviation will never be the primary customer of cell manufacturer. Cells are manufactured for everything, your tablet or whatever. And it is the same cells that you are using for the aircraft. So you need to ensure the traceability, the long life production, and the number of cycles. Because an ATR, for instance, is doing 2,000 cycles a year, you have to overcome this. For instance, the cells that we have selected today, and we have tested it, because you cannot trust what is in the data sheet of a cell. Of the cells manufacturer, because often when you test it, it's not working. Our cells, we have done 4,000 cycles, and we have validated this, and then afterwards you do the integration. So there is two types of battery, and there is the lithium-ion classical battery, lithium-sulfur, this kind of things, based on lithium, and there is also the solid state. There was a lot of hope on solid state because you are less prone to thermal runaway, but it's not yet there. And if you look at
what do you think? How long should we wait until solid-state batteries are ready for use in aviation?
Today, in the discussion we have with cell manufacturer, we see that it could arrive in 10 years from now. But we are not yet, because the new, I would say, you see that there is some solid-state battery arriving, but the number of cycles is not there. The production, the mass production is not there as well. And you have to do afterwards all what has to be industrialized. In terms of density, if you look, there is two types of battery type, power or energy. If you look for the power, for instance, the state-of-art density today, we are at 170 watt-hour per kilogram, with a discharge of 15 C. The C number, or the C rate, is the speed you discharge and charge the battery, okay? And we believe that in the next, I would say, years, we can reach 225 watt-hour per kilogram with 15C. So you see slow progress. And afterwards, when you do the integration, there is one important point, which is the integration ratio, which is the ratio between the weight of the cells and the weight of all what you put around the cells to integrate it on the aircraft. Today, on our prototype, we're at 60%, which is already very good, 70%, sorry. And what we target today is to go to 75 to 80%. And then at the end, we will have as well to ensure that the weight we put on an aircraft, because each time you put weight on an aircraft, you have to have several functions. You have to think about having batteries that could be a contributor to the airframe as well, to even, I would say, improve the integration. So this is the kind of thing that we can say about battery. There is still a long way to go. There is still a lot of progress to be done. And especially having in mind that we are developing aircraft and not car.
Thank you, Stefan. I have a question for Daniel, but first, Michael, you wanted to react. Short answers, please.
So I think it's important to note that a modern gas turbine is about 55% efficient, which is of order 10 to 12 fewer grams of CO2 per kilowatt hour than the world electric grid. Obviously, places like here in France, where there's a lot of nuclear, that's not the case. But it is important to note, on average, what we do, the airplanes and engines that we produce, feed the world.
Daniel, you have put some hopes in hybrid electric for an upgrade or a future generation ATR.
I will concur to what was said, just to say that as the batteries will evolve, we have to have an architecture which is sufficiently open to growth, So that means we know that it's not perfect for the moment. It will not be perfect in the next 2-3 years, and I think it was well said. So we need to be efficient in terms also on integration at aircraft level to be able to digest evolution of batteries, which will evolve, we know. So it's the provisions for the future, the architecture, which shall be resilient compared to these evolutions which will appear. That's clear.
Thank you. Sure.
So we see a sweet spot around 0.5 megawatt to 1 megawatt that can address all domains of flight. And the batteries today are sufficient with the motors, the drives, the generators, the distribution systems, and those technologies are reaching TRL6 in a number of places. For urban air mobility, that is enabling. For a regional turboprop, which is say 2 to 3 megawatts, 50-50 hybrid. And we're doing a flight demo of that in the coming years. And on a single aisle, it's what we call mild hybrid, an A320, 30,000 pounds of thrust, that's 18 megawatts. So 1 megawatt is 5%, and that's just enough to trim the off-design conditions and let you take advantage of it. And we're doing that on the Switch program under Clean Aviation.
Thank you. And you referred to TRL6, that technology readiness level 6.
Thank you.
And correct me if I'm wrong, that's the usual maturity needed for product launch. The right way to summarize it.
Correct.
Thank you. What about the timeline, Sébastien? Clean Aviation says that entry into service in 2035 is a requirement for a significant fleet renewal by 2050. So will everyone, what do you think, will everyone be able to launch a new program with the relevant technologies in, say, 2028 for entry into service in 2035?
I think it's important to remind that we, Clean Aviation, are not the one launching products. We are the one putting conditions in order to support the launch of new product and to support that industry. That's why our key goals is, first of all, making sure that the technologies which are being investigated have the right potential in terms of performance, as I mentioned before, maturity, and potentially something which is often forgotten, the potential for certification. Because in the field of battery, there are a lot of discussions, but so far we haven't yet developed the standards. We are not yet at the right point. When talking about hybridization, there are a lot of questions to fix as well in terms of architecture. So you see everything comes end to end. And our role is to make sure that we have EASA on board to work with us. We have the right demonstration strategy. And to come to your question, our goal is to meet TRL4 on most of the technologies we are currently have in the pipeline by 2026, in order to support the maturation up to TRL6 by 2030. And for that, we are investigating, in fact, either ground test or flight test, and we'll have some flagship demonstrators, like open fan demonstration by 2028, 2029, hybrid electric propulsion concept installed onto a regional aircraft by 2029, 2030, demonstration of the potential of hybrid electric solutions to power an SMR in order to meet that rendezvous. I would not say 2028. 2028, I'll leave it to the one launching projects. What I can observe into the portfolio of technologies we have, we are more aligned with 2030, TRL6.
Thank you. And the others have 2 minutes combined to react. You want to react or add your input, Daniel, about the timeline?
Maybe to, so I will be quick. So to follow what Sébastien was saying, we have a roadmap which is aligned on this timeline, which is important. We don't dream of having something for tomorrow. We have a lot of things to do as homework. It's a lot of technology, new technologies, and I think you mentioned certification will be key. So we have EASA on board. It's a key element on that. And again, we will develop a lot of technologies in parallel, so it's important to work on them and to see, as Stéphane was saying, concretely. So that means you cannot say simply, on the paper it's working. You need to test it. We have seen with our colleagues from the engines, with the colleagues of the batteries, you need to see it and to make it all things all together, which is an art.
Thanks.
At RTX, we don't control the timing of the introduction of new airplanes, but we do invest in technology. And much of that investment is done in public-private partnerships, programs like Clean Aviation, that allow us to accelerate those technologies and have them ready in a meaningful time, having the technologies with the speed of relevance.
Thank you. And you have the last 40 seconds or so.
Yes, I will rebound on the regulation. It's really important to have the regulation on board very early stage. And this is what has been done in Clean Aviation now, and I think it's a very good move. On our side, we are a little bit precursors for the prototypes that will fly early next year. We have fully supported by the EASA. We have embarked the EASA because we have taken the choice to have a pilot on board, and then we are working with 13 people from the EASA, and we grow their knowledge. We influence the regulation as well as maturing the technology, and it's very important if we want to arrive earlier. It's a key point. The second is that the introduction of new technology is often coming from the lower side of the segment of the aviation. So it will not arrive like this on an A320, for instance, because the risk is too high. You have to de-risk and use CS23. This is what we are doing with Daher. For instance, we have a partnership with Daher to progressively grow the technology to arrive at the right level. It's really something which is important. And my last word is that if we want to reach those objectives, which are ambitious objectives with the time frame we have also to ensure that the flow of funding is going to a variety of actors that will bring those new technologies, and not only the big one, I would say, because often what I see today, because I know now all the sides of the industry. I've been in Airbus, in ATR, and now where am I? I see that we can be much agile and rapid to fail, rapid to succeed, and this is really what is needed to have the technology available for the big guys in the next future.
Thank you. Let's wrap up. Thank you very much to our 4 panelists. That was really insightful. I wish we had another 40 minutes, but thank you very much for attending. That's it.